Hey guys, new video here. New episode of Is It Worth the Tower map. I know I talked about this a little bit earlier, but I have completely finished my testing of Tower map. Initially, I rolled, I had 446 in this quad tab. And what I did is I rolled every one of them, and I corrupted all of them and all that good stuff. And you can see my other map rolling videos. But in the tower, it took me 326 maps in order to get the headhunter. So essentially, nurses are 1/8 of a doctor, and there's 8 doctors to a headhunter. So once again, there's 64 nurses, and actually I got 65 because on the last map in which I went from 63 to 64 maps, I'm sorry, 63 to 64 nurses. I actually got 2 nurses in the last map. So what it turned out to be was 326 maps and 65 nurses. So about 5 maps per nurse, and I was running Divination scarabs, and I was running the fragments, and I was running, for the most part, I was running domination, unless I got like some crazy sextant roll, like Nemesis monsters drop 3 additional currency items, or if I got something like a double strongbox roll, which means one sextant says that strongboxes monsters drop 500% increased quantity of items, and I got a strongbox that said, like, in this area there's like extra strongbox and it's rare and corrupted. And the reason that's significant is because if you're gonna roll Monstrous Treasure, and Monstrous Treasure is essentially it is a prophecy that gives you like 30 something extra strong boxes in the map. There's no monsters unless it's like the Sextant monsters, or you're adding harbingers, like breaches, things like that. And it's really nice because like all those things are multiplied by, all the monsters that spawn from them are multiplied by the 500% quantity. You know, that's with the map quantity, and then magic find is multiplicative with that. I'm not magic find, but I'm just kind of explaining how crazy it is. And in those boxes though, you have to roll every single one of them. Well, not every single one of them. Maybe like you'll identify a rare one and it will turn into what you're looking for is like rares and stream of monsters and things like that that add as many monsters as possible, as many high quality monsters as possible. I didn't really like rolling those maps, or I didn't like rolling those boxes, because you take like 10 plus minutes per map, and he's like always scour out the box until you got either stream or maybe magic pack, or at the very least, or you want like 3 rare monsters. So that was like super annoying to me. So what I did is I waited for the sextant, both sextants, if I were going to run these. Okay. So that's a little side note, and obviously the ambush scarabs, you use those if you proc that, because it gave ambush scarabs give I believe 4. Let me check. Ambush scarabs, yeah, they give 5. They give a 5 additional strong boxes, so that's additional monsters multiplied by quantity, etc. So that's pretty good. Overall, is the tower worth it? I would say yes. The tower is actually an incredible map, and there's like so many reasons why it's so good. Okay, so I've already gone over some of this stuff in previous videos, but basically the layout is kind of insane. There's usually like 4 levels, I think, and in these levels, it is so hard to miss any monsters, right? It is damn near impossible to end a map and have it not say like 5 monsters remain, 10 monsters remain, 0 monsters remain. It's very hard not to do that, because each level is like a kind of a U shape, and you can clear it so easily. Now, one small caveat is that if fortification spawns, it might do a side room that you probably won't miss it, but maybe sometimes you can miss it if you're really not paying attention. And behind the fortification, because usually what happens when you hit a fortification is you kill the first door, right? So you kill the first door, which is usually closest to the path to you and to the rest of the map, and you go in there, you kill the masters, and you leave, right? There is very few instances where there might be a harbinger spawn, if you're running harbinger or have like the scarab, where the harbinger spawn and a pack of monsters from the map naturally will spawn behind the fortification. So because you don't usually clear the door, kill the guy, and then go all the way back behind it, you could miss that in some cases, but that was so rare. But that's one instance where the layout might mess you up a tiny bit, right? So essentially, my overall stats further is out of my 65 nurses, because remember, I was clicking every single chest that I could and trunk in the tower. I didn't need to click the urns because I was playing Winter's Orb, and Winter's Orb, you know, Herald of Thunder, things like this, if you're using that, they will clear the urns for you. So that's pretty great. And I feel, because I wasn't tracking the urns because it's really hard to see, but I feel like a few nurses came from the urns, but out of all the ones I ran from stream, which was every single one of these 326, we tracked 2. There were 2 nurses out of 326 326 maps that came from nurses. So essentially you can think about it like this. You can think that if you click almost every single chest and every single barrel that you can, what you're looking at is you are adding 1C, about 1C, to every single map. Okay, so is it worth it to click on chests in the tower? I would say no, because the time it takes, the length that it extends the map, you can see from my previous video about is it worth to click on chests, I would say absolutely not. It is not. Okay, but then watch my other video to see, like, there's some caveats to that, but I would say hell no. It was so bad, right? What about other things? Well, I did get 2 tower maps out of it. I remember this. I didn't get any T16 maps out of the chest because you can't, right? Because it's not a +1 monster like a blue or rare mob. And then as for wretches, I got 13. I got 13 wretches out of the chest. Wretches easily sell at 5C each, so let's just say that's 65C. So 65C out of 326. So you get a fifth. What is that? A fifth of a Chow's Orb out of each map if you click on chest as well. So a fifth of that, and adding to your 1C. So 1.2C extra out of every map if you click every chest and trunk. So obviously you can probably think about that in your head, and it's probably not that great, right? Other bad things about the tower. So I guess the boss, right? So the boss is phase. It is a unskippable phase, and the reason I mention that is because if you take a map like let's just see. Estuary. Okay, if you take a map like Estuary has this elemental boss which splits into 2 mini bosses, right? But although he is phased, if your damage isn't that great, or like it doesn't even have to be your damage isn't that great. It's just like if you have like a normal build that doesn't like one-shot the boss, he will split, and then you can't kill him until you kill his 2 little guys, right? Now, if your damage is really good, right, and you go in there and you one-shot him, then he can't phase. So it could be a non-phase boss. With Tower, the boss is essentially the Act. I believe it's Act 6. I think it's the Act 6 boss, Chevroni, in her tower, where she resurrects Brutus, and then she also has to empower him with like the blue lightning, and you have to fight him again. It's almost the exact same fight. So essentially, if you have the damage and you booty blast Brutus, you know, Chevron comes into the middle, she flies into the ceiling once you've done enough damage, and then like she goes like, well, by my I will not suffer the thing again, and then she resurrects Brutus, and now he's empowered by lightning, right? You can't skip these stages even if you had like a trillion DPS, and that's what makes the boss kind of weird, because it does take a significant amount of time, even compared to something like, let's say you have like a 2-phase Merveil in a map, right? The UGS that we talked about. So that's something that was super annoying, and that's why I actually skipped every boss, and so I didn't like that. Now I believe that if you were to kill all of them, you know, obviously bosses drop a little bit more than like a rare or something like that. I don't believe it to be more worthwhile, even if it's dropping like T16 maps, even if it's dropping like a nurse here and there. That's just my feeling, but I don't have the data on the boss because I didn't kill it for the reasons I just mentioned, right? It took too long. And so that's kind of something that's bad about it. Another bad thing about the tower is that it is red Sextant. So, you know, if you look right here, lots of maps in range for you to choose from, right, to Sextant, but unfortunately they are red, and reds are a little bit more expensive than the yellows or the whites, obviously, right? You can look up period trade for the current ratios. But what comes with that is that if you've never used red Sextant before, there are some really nice Sextant modifiers, right, that you can only get get on red. You can check the PoE wiki for those Sextant modifiers, but the ones that spring to the forefront of my mind when I think about it is the best one is the Nemesis monsters drop 3 additional currency items, right? Every yellow monster in the map will drop 3 additional currency items, and then you know, sometimes they're like the really bad ones, but you know, I've gotten Exalted from them, I've gotten Divine, I've gotten everything down the road. I haven't gotten a meter though, but out of these, I would say that this pays for like all the differences in the red and yellow sextants, or white, between the red and white sextants, until the next time you get the thing. So although it's more front loaded, you're spending more money per click. When you get a big sextant, it is massive, and when you really juice that up, so like the yellows also applied when it says Nemesis. 3 currencies, it applies to the Harbinger spawn rares, it applies to the Breach spawn rares. If you use a prophecy called the Twins, do I have that here somewhere? Right here. If you use the Twins, right, the Twins will give you double rare monsters. It's crazy. So you get double the amount of currencies. And another thing is that, another thing to note is that this prophecy does not work with the Sextant that says you cannot take reflected damage, right? My dog's going crazy on this toy. This does not stack with the prophecy, or with a Sextant that says you cannot take reflected damage, because that one also doubles the rare monsters. Okay, they're the monsters like mirrored and stuff, right? So just keep that in mind. Don't proc the Twins with that, because if you do, it won't give you quadruple monsters. It'll only give you double monsters. You know, as if only one of them were activated, right? So that's another thing to note. So another thing is, I guess you could get this one that's like 5% chance to drop like the corrupted items. Now that could be good or bad, because if you corrupt a map, like a T15, T16 map, and it's a white corrupted, right, doesn't change to a rare, then it's like, oh man, that's pretty much a totally bricked map, right? And that kind of felt bad. But you could get a lot of 6 links from it, right? Kind of like, you can think of it as, you know, when you corrupt an armor, a weapon, well, that can have 6 sockets, right? It's a 1 in 36 chance, because the way that the corruption works on these items is that it rolls a random socket, and then it rolls a random link. So essentially it's like 1 out of 36 chance, right? So really nice there. When you get those, I got plenty of divines from that. Now, what about the frequency? So if you're worried about frequency, I would say that the Nemesis one I got in 300 and something maps. I got it about maybe 5 or 6 times. So what does that equate to? That's like probably 15 to 18 maps run with that Sextant. These are ballpark numbers. I should have tracked it, but it was like you know, I didn't. But it was probably like between 5 and 6 Sextant rolls, which means, once again, 15 to 18 maps. Okay, so that's pretty good. It's a lot of fun, and then obviously the other red Sextants are pretty cool as well. Okay, so other things to say about this is that I've already talked about the layout. I've already talked about how the monsters are extremely hard to miss. A little thing that is kind of meta, right, is you know how like you ever run through a map and you don't know where the end of the map is. You don't know like if you've cleared the entire map. That's a bad feeling, right? Well, with Tower, the good news is that once you enter the last floor, right, like the 4th floor or whatever, there is the doorway. So you know how kind of like, I don't know if there's a doorway here, but let me just go to like the coast or something, right? I'll just go here. Okay, so you see you see that orange right there? You see that? Oh, I guess. Okay, you see that orange thing right here, that doorway? When you enter the last zone, okay, the final floor of tower, this orange little door will appear almost instantly. So you know that that is the last floor. Now I know this is like not a big deal to some of you guys, but it is actually something that's, because you know how like in a lot of games like Skyrim or something, or any of these little like RPGs, you know, you find like some kind of potion, you find some little thing, and you save it to like the very end, and you end up never using it. And it's just this bad feeling. You're waiting for the right moment, like you don't know. And it's kind of the same thing with PoE in these maps. I know it's a pretty bad analogy. I know, but it's because you want to know where the ending is. You want to know when you can do something. And what do I mean by that? Is like if you go into the last floor and you know it's the last floor, right? And you see that little orange door. It's like that little marker in your head you can actually be a little bit more efficient. And what do I mean by that? Let's say your inventory is completely full. You can well, this one's not, but let's say your inventory is completely full and you can no longer pick up any more 6 sockets if they drop. Well, because you know that it is the last floor, right, and if you're a speedy boy, you can actually clear all the monsters around the U-turn, and then you can just come back, right? You can always skip the items because you know you won't really be backtracking that much, and then once you clear all those monsters, it's actually over, so it's safe to run back, and you're not really missing. I know this is like a very small thing, but knowing where the end of a map is and when the completion is coming does help you be more efficient, and it's more peace of mind. And it's such a small thing, but it is really nice when, if you've ever ran Tower, you know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. Another thing is that overall, like averaging, I'd say like if you're sextanting, if you're if you're juicing your maps the right way, rolling the right way. I have a YouTube video about rolling maps. I'd say that it was about 1,400 monsters, right? So the way that like the maps usually work is like the base amount is usually like if you really bad map, like a strand or like an underground river, you're looking at like 400 monsters, right? The decent ones are probably around 500, and the really good ones can be 600 or more. Okay, I feel like these are like the 3 tiers, right? Like the poopy ones, the regular ones that could swing either way, and then the really good ones that are always dense. And Tower is nearing that 600 number base, and once you really juice it up, it is a lot of monsters, and I love that. I love that although it doesn't fit the philosophy, because Grinding Gear has this philosophy of if a map is faster and easier to run, then we will add less monsters to it, and we'll make it less dense and less rewarding. But Tower is very linear, it is very dense, and it has insane divination cards, right? The divination cards alone I could talk about for a while, but let's just get right into it. So with like the 1,400 monsters, if you're a fully juiced up map, and you are looking at wretches, well, if you're magic find and you're using divination scarabs, the interesting thing to know about this map is that wretches were easily selling for 5C each, right? And let's say you're magic find, you find like 1 set per map or something like that, or close to 1 set, 25, 30C at least, right? If you have more bulk, you can probably sell for 6C. It's kind of weird how that works out, but like imagine that a divination scarab, okay, costs you 30C, and you can make that 30C back in wretches if you're magic finding, and obviously the currency from that, and obviously the occasional nurse will overtake that, right, in terms of profit. Well, that's amazing in itself, right? So it makes it that burden of like, ooh, do I put in that scarab? It like removes that completely. And so the Wretched is such a nice card. You can't get header from it. I've bought over a mirror of Wretches. Obviously, I haven't gotten anything from it, but other people have said they've gotten 1 in 50, 1 in 60, 1 in 30. Really lucky people get like 1 in, on their first one or whatever, right? But from the data that I've actually taken a look at, from other people's videos, from Slippery Jim's turn-ins, from other people that I trust, 1 in 50, 1 in 100 is pretty reasonable, right? So I think that's a pretty nice card in and of itself. And the other card, obviously, we all know the big boy card, the Nurse, right? Which is the entire reason why I farm the tower this much, is the Nurse is, for me it was 1 in 5. If you're Magic Find, it'll be better than that if you're using the Divination Scarab. And so it's such a big card, such a nice card. Obviously, you can hold it to for the Doctor, for the Header, but if you're selling it like as you get them, the C right now is in flux. It is jumping a little bit right now, and obviously the faster you have some currency, like let's say a Nurse is like 150C, right? You probably want rather, because like time value of money, you want that C, because if you get the 150C early, then you can start investing and whooping and flipping items, and you can do all these things if you have that money faster. So the incremental nature of it, right? The increment and the variance between each Nurse that you find is much less than a Doctor, to the point where I will be doing a Doctor test next with Spidey Force, but I would say for now that I would much prefer a more frequent dropping of the cards, the Wretched, the Nurse, than that big card every 30, 40, 50, 60 maps, or whatever, however many it takes you with the Divination Scarab and Magic Find or no Magic Find, okay? So I like the variance between the Nurses. It felt good. It felt very fair. Sometimes when I hear about people farming burials, sometimes when I watch other streams of people farming burials, it just seems unfair. And the amount of times I could hear people complain about burials, like, oh, I'm so unlucky, you know, the streak, it's too streaky, or I guess someone else getting super lucky. That I feel that doesn't have enough positive reinforcement. And positive reinforcement, you know, sometimes dropping an exalt, dropping a nurse is like such a good feeling for your mind. You want to keep playing, you're having more fun instead of waiting and wondering where that next big drop is. So that's all I'll say about the divination cards. Amazing, amazing divination cards for this tower map. Okay. And is there anything else that I really need to talk about when it comes to this map? I guess I could talk about the sextanting and the actual strategy for sustaining a little bit, because so overall, if you don't want to hear this part, is it worth? Yes, the tower map is absolutely worth. It is once again crazy density, crazy layout, good feels, good divination cards. Impossible not to make a crap ton of money. Fun, dark on the dark mode, so it's easy on the eyes. And really the only negatives are red sextants and the boss is phased, right? So that's about it. So okay, let's talk about the Atlas strategy here. So what I was doing initially to get my towers is that I had a Moon Temple strategy and a Cell strategy. So when I had Elder, T16, Moon Temple, and Cells, you know, I cleared off my Jardians here so that I can only drop my T16 of choice, which once again was Moon Temple, and I cleared all my T15s instead of tower, which is 5 of them. So I'll just show you tier 15 here. So you have 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, there's 5 total, but I cleared 4. So why did I clear 4? It's because if the tower is the only tier 15, once a tier 15 map drops, the Atlas searches, boom, it's only tower, drops the tower. So it was any T15 I dropped was tower. So I was able to, obviously I bought a lot of them, but I also dropped a lot of them, right? And so that's the strategy for obtaining them for me. Now, what about running them? So I did actually both. So initially, like before I started this test and everything, I was thinking about like doing tower with 4 sextants, right? Because like 4 sextants means, what does that mean? It means that if I only have tower as my tier 15 and I clear my T16s, well then that means that it will share a 50-50 drop chance between the Hydra and the tower, right? So a map drops that's like T16, it will be it could be the Hydra, right? Because it's connected, right? The Atlas rules is as long as it's connected, it can drop, right? And if a tier 15 dropped, then it would be a tower. So split 50-50 there, kind of, right? And then I started thinking, I was like, well, you know, if I'm going to run this map, and this map is a 10C map, if you want to buy in massive quantities, you can do 11C. And so if it's an 11C map, and the T16 is more expensive, and I can just sell the other maps just as easily, shouldn't I just do everything and gain a Sextant and sell the other maps, right? Because it's essentially a net, you know, you're even on the net, right? Well, actually you're up, because although it requires a little bit more trade interaction to sell the T16s and the other T15s that you'll drop, right? And then buying towers, the extra Sextant could be massive, right? For the little meta reason that, let's say you get a Sextant that you don't want to reroll. So let's say you got what's one? Okay, let's just say you got the 5% chance of corrupted items, right? Now you might be like, oh wow, I can get some divines, I can get some cool stuff like that. But that takes up essentially the room of a Sextant that has monsters. So if, let's say you have like lightning monsters, fire monsters, cold monsters, and then the 5% corrupted Sextant, right? You could have had an extra monster pack there, right? If you had 5 Sextants. So the 5th Sextant allows you to have these cool mods that you wouldn't reroll, and also have the chance of another pack of monsters in the map. Well, multiple packs, of course. So I thought that was kind of crazy. So then I was like, okay, that's fine. And then I thought, well, if I am gonna have the chance of dropping the lair right here, right, T16, well, then why wouldn't I complete all of them? Because if I can drop this anyways, then why wouldn't I complete all of them and get the extra Sextant? So these two things combined made me think, and I completed the entire Atlas. So I went 159. I sold the Jardian maps and all the T15 maps in bulk, very easy to do, and then I just bought towers with that if I wanted to, and essentially you are still net positive because of that, right? Now another thing to note is that if you have if you're doing a strategy where you don't have your T16s, okay, and you have what's it called? You have an eldered map. Let's just say you had an eldered, like for me, I have an eldered spider forest, right? So the Spodis and the lair will actually split the drops, but not evenly. Okay, it would be even if this Hydra was completed. You see, and so you should, if you're running, if you're gonna run tower, unless you have another elder, right, that you're trying to do, you should probably complete the Hydra. It's one free Atlas bonus, right? You can drop it anyways, and here's how it works. If this Hydra is completed, your eldered map, your T16 map that you chose, and this Hydra will be 50-50. If this Hydra is not completed, okay, then it will be a 66% chance to drop this, and a 33% chance to drop this, because they like changed something in the Atlas where uncompleted map connectors are twice as likely to drop than its competitors, right? I think they made this to make the progression in solo self-fam through the Atlas a little bit easier. So that's just one tiny little thing to know, but doesn't really matter too much. But I would say if you're running towers, you probably should complete this, and then I guess if you're completing this, why not complete everything else? So that's the reasoning there. I got the extra Sextant, and right now I don't, because I'm switching to Spodies for another test, but you should probably try a full Atlas. You know, extra bonus means more chances at +2s, a little bit, right? You can think of it as well. Whatever 8 divided by 51, that's about 16%. 16% more chance to get the +2 map, right? Pretty great. And then extra Sextant once again. Wonderful. So that's what I'll say about the sustaining of this. All these maps were easy to sell. If you want to know what happens, like let's say you complete all these, right? You start dropping like because from the glowing monsters in the map, you start dropping a lot of these. I guess here, I'll just show you. If you go to PoE Trade or you use your premium tabs, this is how I do it. Manage your shop, right? Betrayal. And if you look here, these are kind of outdated prices, but I just sell mine 10 at a time, because sometimes you don't have another set of 10, or I'm sorry, if you do like too much, like let's say you have like 35 Hydras and you do a rate of 35, you know, it's like you might get less whispers because maybe someone doesn't want to buy 35. So I just thought 10 was a pretty even number, pretty easy. And then so what you do is you put what you have on the left side and the ratio you have, and then you put what you want on the right side, right? So like for this one, I was at like, if you want to buy 10 of my Hydras, you gotta pay me 119C, right? And this was the fast way to sell the maps, because nobody likes to sell maps one at a time. That's super annoying, right? So you can just do bulk buys, bulk sells here, and then you should be able to, and as you can see, I have all my other things here too, but those are all my other ratios, and so you could just do that, and the selling, as long as you're a little bit patient, then you'll be fine, right? That's the video. I hope you guys you know, learned something or got some kind of insight out of it. I would say if you haven't tried Tower already, go ahead and try it, and you might find some extreme fun in this map. Okay, thank you for watching my video. Okay, bye everyone. Bye.